New year, same Ricochet on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. I believe this is our first Ruthless Discussion of 2026, somehow, some way. It might not be. If it is, welcome to another year, another trip around the sun. I am your host, of course, Tempest, alongside my wonderful and lovely co-host, Sat Niangi. Sat, what's causing all this?
Angry Bold tweets. Bold tweeting tweets about the Fed. Bold is right because it's Bold's career. Bold being Ricochet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, we've had a decent little run here on Wrestle Purists thus far. We've enjoyed ourselves a few ruthless discussions about various bits and pieces, kind of like mostly topical things, mostly things that kind of go along with the booking or, the treatment of whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But to this point, we haven't done a real proper deep dive on something like this, where a guy has said something and we kind of take the time to look a little bit deeper to kind of dissect what he said, what the response to that has been, the validity of such statements, etc.
Yes,
That's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do today, because Ricochet really kind of whipped the wrestling world into a frenzy this week. And personally, I love to see it.
Me too.
Personally, love this kind of chaos, right? That kind of don't give a fuck, say what you want type deal, as long as it's coming from, a good place. And and Ricochet might be saying some very pointed things, but I truly do believe that he is speaking his truth,
Mm-hmm.
and that's cool. That's cool. So we're going to go through all of that, real quick, because this, like I said, reports have come out. This has riled up some people. This has ruffled some feathers in the WWE, of course, Ricochet's former employer. So before we get too far underway, I'm gonna read out the main chunk of these tweets, right? The main pieces that people really kind of latched onto and decided to get worked up over. So bear with me. I'll try and designate each of these as a new tweet when we get one, because a lot of these are replying to people and whatnot.
Yeah.
Regarding WWE, he says, "They took my love of pro wrestling away. I'll never forget how I felt walking into work every week, and that platform was only to make others look good at my expense. And I told them I'd rather quit and go back to the indies and make whatever I'd made there than come back the next week." Next tweet, "Many discovered me at a time where my talents and legacy were being taken advantage of by a company that didn't really care about me. However, more people have been following me since before WWE and appreciate what they know I can bring and what I can do. No longer want to watch." Someone replied to that saying Bryan Danielson said he was disassociating in the ring during the main event of WrestleMania, to which Ricochet replies, "Happened to me every week."
Huh.
He goes on to say that the same thing happened to Balor, Shinsuke, Apollo, and many others. WWE kills legacies and love of the sport. It's what they do best. Following up to the same user saying, "I do feel this way, and many others do as well. That company kills the love, and you end up being a shell of who you were and going through the motions." And finally, he says, "I'd argue El Generico has a better legacy than Sami Zayn."
Ooh.
Now that one was especially spicy, because that was like particularly directed in one direction, and people have taken each of these tweets and they have had a field day with them. You have your weirdo fans on one side who are going to be mad if anybody says anything negative about their WWE, disregarding, of course, many of the top stars of old, who, when they leave, they don't pull punches about what they think about the whole deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the track record has shown that every top star that speaks their mind, that tells WWE to fuck you they are welcomed back with even more open arms than those who love WWE and would be honored to be welcomed back tomorrow if given the chance.
Matt Cardona.
Yeah, King of the Indies. You got your Steve Austins, you got your Rocks, you got your Bret Harts, you got your CM Punks, even.
Yeah.
Anyone that goes out there and says, fuck you, WWE, I don't need you. Well, that just makes WWE want them more. So I find the people that are ignoring a lot of those facts, to be quite funny. But I don't think of those people as thinking particularly critically when it comes to this sort of thing. It's just kind of blind, just red, white hot reaction.
As always, man, as always.
Just to come, which is expected on Twitter, of course.
Yeah.
But the bigger deal here is the meat of what Ricochet is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? WWE, how they treat people, and his experience working there. Because a lot of take it one step up from just the blind rage reactions, these folk. A lot of people not wanting someone like Ricochet to speak out about WWE or to just speak negatively about their experience somewhere. And that comes from a lot of different people in a lot of different walks of life. You'll see it anywhere. Anybody who just kind of blindly follows a fandom like that, there are people that tend to just defend it. And that might be if Oscar Isaac or John Boyega or whoever say anything negative about Star Wars, you'll have angry Star Wars nerds coming at them that they should just be happy to have been there. If it's an athlete who might not have particularly good things to say about a team after they've left, you'll have the fans of those teams, shaking their fists at them, driving them out of town. This has come to be expected of all fandoms. You're going to have your nut jobs and everything. But rarely do we see the level to which Ricochet went off on Twitter about any of these employers, right? So I want to throw it over to you, Sat, to kind of get your overall takes on what he said, what the vibe has been the last week or so, and where that leaves us now.
So this is my take on things. First of all, is very important that wrestling fans or people that are on the outside looking in, this is Ricochet's experience. Imagine if you didn't have a great time at your old workplace and you're explaining that you didn't have a good time at your old workplace, but people were saying, but Tempest, it's a cool place, or it's a great place, or this new company working for Apple's great, or Amazon's great, Spotify, whatever, because the name of the brand, right? Because of the brand, they think, man, you're working for Coca-Cola or Pepsi, it must be amazing. But you're like, no, it wasn't. There's many reasons why I didn't like it, but you're wrong. But you're like, those are my lived experience. Do you know how psychotic that sounds? That you're explaining your lived experience, and I'm telling you, you're wrong because the name of the brand is because I like the brand. I like Pepsi, okay? You don't talk down on my dear Pepsi. So that's what it felt like. See people say, my beloved WWE, who's never done me wrong. How dare you speak ill of it? And it's like, these are his lived experience, not just his lived experience. It's shown on screen. It's not like he is some deluded individual, like, oh, this is a former 5-time world heavyweight champion, main event in WrestleMania, did all these things, all these accolades that they love to do, accolades. He has none of those accolades of the main eventer. He was a guy that had all the indie credentials. When they were talking about high flyers, this is before like Will Ospreay properly launched. For years, they'll talk about this guy Ricochet in Dragon Gate, this guy Ricochet. It's almost like a myth. This guy that does things you cannot. You're like, really? Like Pac? Even better than Pac? Because Pac was the guy that was the it guy in the independents. And you're hearing about Ricochet. And then Ricochet has that great viral moment with Will Ospreay. The one that, got everyone's took us all tight and pressed. And everyone had an opinion. To the point, legends starting their own podcast or responding through Conrad as it was back in the days. This guy was known. Lucha Underground was built off his back. He was like the ace of a new company that was counterculture, the closest you get to a new version of ECW. and then he signs with WWE. Everyone's excited because at the time, WWE had no competition, the monopoly. What do you do when you have a monopoly? Well, I'm gonna create a pseudo competition for myself, just for shits and giggles. And then they bring in Ricochet in the it brand, the counterculture brand that is NXT. And in the beginning, it seems like they appealing to his strength. They you know, he's doing all his cool high flying moves. He looks cool, right? When you talk about the Ricochet's time in NXT, he was able to be cool, right? He did cool moves. They didn't give him the mic that often, but his work in the ring spoke for itself. When the bell rang, that's all you needed from him. And then he goes to Raw and SmackDown. The next 5 years, he goes from being this cool high flyer to being, then it gets turned into a geek. And unfortunately for Ricochet, it's not the first time that has happened. WWE has a habit of taking young high flyers that are doing great in the indies. They take their Paul Londons, they take their Matt Seidels, they bring them to WWE because of their quote unquote size. All they can be is good hand high flyers to bounce off the likes of Snitsky, Heidenreich, or Mike Knox, whoever it is they need to get over. That's what their job is. Brian Kendrick's another one who is Spanky. That was a certified jobber. He's Spanky. You're gonna wear those sparkly pants in 03, 04, wherever it is, and that is your job in the ring. So unfortunately, Ricochet, as much as he was more talented. These are great guys. I'm like Matt Seider during his time, he was doing wicked things. Paul London in his days, Please Don't Die. That Paul London from ROH, incredible things. Brian Kendrick went all around the world. But Ricochet has something that was intangible. You rarely see a guy that can do a double flipping moonsault. Do you know what I'm saying? There's certain things that it seemed impossible, almost AI, almost CGI, and he was doing it with his body. That guy had a level of talent that you don't see. The word generational gets thrown a lot, but he was a generational talent. But what happened is like WWE, the erosion. Because what happens? You do disassociate. You're not winning matches often. You're wrestling on superstars or main event. You're losing to like Slapjack, Slapnuts, whatever the name was from bloody whatever the group Retribution. All of a sudden, your credibility goes down. And WWE does this thing where they're conditioning fans just to see you less than. And I'm gonna use one example if I throw it back to you. And currently, that is Apollo Crews, who's UR Nation. Back in the days in Dragon Gate, this guy was seen as like he could be the next big thing. He had a size and body like he's Bobby Lashley, but he can fly like he's bloody Ricochet at one point. This guy had a perfect hybrid of two. You bring him over to WWE. One of the biggest mistakes they made was they didn't allow him enough time to cook in terms of a personality or who he was in NXT. Because as soon as, I'm assuming Vince saw him, wow, bring him to the main roster because he looks the part. But it didn't appeal to his strength. And then it's almost like depressing that the best run he had was during the pandemic times, right? This is before the African character. During the pandemic times, babyface, United States champion, feuding with the Hurt Business. He was clicking on all cylinders. Then it went a bit apeshit for a bit. And then they gave him a stereotypical Nigerian gimmick because it wasn't authentic. Because Obafemi does it with authenticity. This was done with tongue-in-cheekness. And you can tell when something's done with tongue-in-cheek that you're not meant to respect it or take it seriously. And unfortunately, that's what happened with Apollo Crews. And then he got sent back to NXT again. There's an overlapping time between your time and my time when we were reviewing NXT. I was a bit excited, this is the NXT run he never got. Then he loses to Double Kato or General Aziz, and it just never went there. He talked about wanting to challenge for the NXT title, but it never went anywhere. And he was losing more often than winning. He went for a 2-week period when he had a That's So Raven gimmick, when he could see things in the future or wherever that was. And then that's it. Brought back to the main roster, tag teaming with Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin gets released, and then he beats, Giovanni Vinci a couple of times, and then he's injured. And then he's sent off to Triple AR because that's what happens. We've got multiple companies. Undertaker goes, okay, I'll make use of guys that are sitting, twiddling their thumbs. And funnily enough, right after the comments Ricochet made, look who appeared backstage in this segment for no reason to be Matt Cardona's talk to. Apollo Crews. That wasn't done coincidentally. They were saying, oh, damn, here, look, we have him because he was named, specifically named. Because that is a guy that I look every time I see him, I'm like, why not push him? Why are we not doing more with him? Because what I hate is you get guys like Shelton Benjamin, and it sucks because you go, oh man, if Shelton Benjamin's wrestling today, fucking garbage, Tempest. I hate when people do that. Because if that's true, why are you not rallying behind Apollo Crews? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's kind of like back in the days, man. If Two Cold Scorpio wrestling today, fucking bullshit. Because again, you got Apollo Crews, same kind of vibe, black high flyer. There's differences, but you know what I'm trying to get at. People are always trying to say in hindsight, it'll be Apollo Crews leaving. Man, Apollo Crews could have been. In 10 years later, nah, it's bullshit. No one learns from their mistake. No one knows when to rally for wrestlers. I've got more of a list, but I feel like I've done enough in terms of a rant and to rally up the intensity of what we're talking about, because it kills careers. I use one more example. Knock, knock. Who's there? Braden Walker. There for a cup of coffee. Career killed. This guy was one half of one of the best tag teams, AMW. At one point, he was seen as the Shawn Michaels to James Storm's Martin Jannetty. He was seen as the future main eventer. Then he decided to leave AEW. He decided to leave TNA, go to ECW. Yeah, he packed on some few pounds. He didn't help himself there, but he's wearing straps. You know, it's better than what bloody Chris Hero used to do, just letting it all hang out. And then after that, you know, he made a joke. He never recovered. It's perception. WWE were the biggest game in town. They got the power to completely destroy you by burying you and making you look like a cuck, look like a dweeb, look like a geek. And that's what happened to Ricochet. And obviously, he had to swallow his pride for years, because for years, there was no AEW. He couldn't leave. He can go to TNA, but what happens in TNA? Is this like a holding pattern for careers unless you really want to do something with yourself? So he knew he couldn't go anywhere. He was always handcuffed there. So God bless the elite for helping, you know, co-star AEW. And then that's when he was able to leave. A safe haven was finally there, because even Japan wasn't helpful. As much as we talk about that viral moment, that guy was in a never open trios, you know, team. He wasn't really used as well as he was compared to when he headlined the Tokyo Dome as part of AEW, which is fascinating. When he was part of New Japan, he wasn't really used to his potential. It was kind of like, hey, good hand, high flyer, junior. You know, he was a junior. You know, it wasn't to the extent of like he could break out and do big things like he did in Lucha Underground. But Ricochet was beholden to the company he was at. When the first opportunity was open and he saw a clear light from the tunnel, he took it. So this is his experience, but it's not just him. It's a cautionary tale for a lot of people. Throwing it back to you, but that's Wagwan.
That is Wagwan, bro. I could take this in a bunch of different directions. The things that you say, you know, because I don't want to spend a lot of the time harping on idiots on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm shouting into a void. There's no point, right? They're not listening to this show. And if you are, change your behavior. But no, like, I know our fine listeners are fine people, and I appreciate you. And I will check your comments down below. But the one thing I want to say before I close that tab in my mind is that these people, that they are hypocritical to an extent that I would consider very unhealthy. Because I will use the example of Sasha and Naomi, right? Different situation, left the company, didn't go out and talk shit. They didn't go do the podcast, you know, the Talk is Jericho podcast and whatever, right? They left. And people didn't like that, right? People didn't like any of that. And it became a thing for as long as still is a thing in the case of Mercedes. You know, Naomi came back and that's great, but they left. They decided, fuck this, not happy, and they left. And they caught all that criticism, right? For these people, they'll be like, why didn't you just quit to Ricochet? Well, the people that did say, all right, fuck you, take this job, stick it up your ass, and we'll walk out and quit. I'm sorry, they were faced with more criticism than anybody deserved.
Misogyny, misogyny,
racism, whole deal. You get Ricochet, who lasts out his contract, doesn't say shit while he's there, goes to work, does his job, works through his contract, then leaves. And then he feels the need to express his truth, and people are still bitching about it. Why didn't you quit? Fuck you. You would be saying, why didn't you finish out your fucking contract if he did? So to those people, fucking shove your own opinions up your ass. Right,
and he put Braun over as well. He was instrumental in making Braun look like a monster. I mean, come on, that parking lot spot.
is tremendous. You can't ask for a guy to do business better than Ricochet did on the way out, right?
Yep.
So I have no, for the sake of covering all the bases, I have no fucking problem with what Mercedes and Naomi did either. Not a problem.
Same.
Absolutely not.
Same.
I don't have a fucking problem with Steve Austin walking out of WWE in May of 2002.
Same.
You know, fucking watch his DVD and watch Triple H in an interview talk about how it's just not the right thing to do. Fucking setting himself up for a great role in a suit, dickhead. But anyway, back to present day. Getting the fan perspective out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting that side of things and pushing it to a side. If you just look at Ricochet, one of the things that I do want to highlight in all of this, and his experience would be his experience no matter what he would have done following WWE, what he has said would not be invalidated if he decided to just go home and sit on the couch for 18 months, right? If he had done literally nothing, his truth is his truth. That's his experience. But I don't know how you can look at this guy who has turned his career 180 degrees in the last 18 months.
Yes, sir.
And has made himself an undeniable pillar of this AEW roster, carved out a section of it for himself in which there is no one like him. There is no one that could go out and do Ricochet right now other than Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
You could have so many people go and do what he was doing in WWE, and that's been evident during his time and after. But my point is, this guy didn't just go and sit at home and then cry about his treatment at the other place. He has gone out there and proven that they were fucking inept to not be able to book this man.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone out there and bet on himself. He left. He went somewhere else, and he did what he is saying he should have been able to do. So I want to give him major props for that. You know, just like it helps his argument a lot.
Yeah, it's not a right back situation. It's not like a right back where you can just go, well, you're not doing anything right now. You know, they don't have any. What you're trying to say? They don't have any mud to sling back at him. That's what
exactly. Like him not having this wouldn't invalidate his argument, but he has strengthened his argument tenfold by being undeniable somewhere else, right? Because fuck, man, I sat there and watched the whole thing. I was there for his run. I was there. I was in the fucking crowd when he showed up front row in NXT. I was at that takeover, right? It was a big deal. That Ricochet was my ex-girlfriend's only favorite wrestler. Did not fucking like wrestling. It was my thing that she would catch glimpses of. But when Ricochet had a match, I would tell her and she'd be like, I want to see it. I would like to see him face Adam Cole. I would like to see him face Velveteen Dream. I would like to see him face whoever, right? The run of takeovers that he had in 2018 was, you know, it was still working. It was still working. He hadn't been ruined because NXT was this utopic society where we could all enjoy our indie feds on the WWE network. That being said, this guy, I have learned my lesson many times over that there is no such thing as a sure thing. They can fuck up anyone. I thought Bayley was a sure thing. I thought Asuka was a sure thing. I thought Ricochet was a sure thing. Look at him. He flies like no one else. Just let him do that. All the kids are going to love him, and just don't beat him. You know, just like give him some wins, keep him in the hunt. He doesn't need to be, you know, John Cena beating everybody, but like, you know, be the kind of underdog baby face that they have forgotten how to book. And I will never, ever, ever forget the stretch of time between the beginning of 2020 and the start of the pandemic where they had Ricochet in that mix, in that Paul Heyman Raw fucking tenure that he had, where he was one of those guys that was, you know, gonna get a rub or gonna get a push or gonna get a run or whatever. And he's instrumental in Brock Lesnar's elimination in that Royal Rumble. And they set that up by having Ricochet be the challenger in Saudi Arabia. And what did they do? They had Brock Lesnar squash fucking Ricochet. He didn't hit a single move. And the next fucking night on Raw, he's losing to Riddick Moss for the fucking 24/7 title. Now, anytime that you throw any sort of criticism at any one particular stupid fucking idea that they have had, if it's somebody that ends up going on to success, they'll be like, oh, see, it doesn't really, wins and losses don't really matter, right? Like, if you ask, why the fuck did Chris Jericho beat AJ Styles at WrestleMania 32 to only have AJ Styles win the number one contendership the next night, when you'd think, you know, well, they go, well, see, it doesn't matter. He could win that number one contender and he'll face Roman Reigns, and it doesn't matter that he lost to Chris Jericho. They will try and justify the success, you know, and the losses that they take along the way of like not really mattering. The ends will justify the means. When like every fucking instance of someone succeeding over there is in spite of bad booking, not because of it. Fuck me running, this shit pisses me off, because you're right. You look up and down the years and years and years that WWE has had, taking guys like Braden Walker, doing that. That's a guy's fucking career. You know, that's a human being. Chris Harris, shout out to that guy. Look at everyone, every person that you can think of that hasn't broken through to that main event spot. They saddled Dolph Ziggler with the name Dolph Ziggler because it's a fucking funny joke to them, you know? And I would bring up the idea that, like, you've got the old guard and the new guard and whatever. Well, Ricochet was there for both. So as far as I'm considered, it's all the fucking same.
Yep.
You know, I know there are different people that would be making decisions if you're Paul London or if you're Ricochet and Apollo Crews. I don't fucking care. As far as I'm concerned, it is one homogenous being, is WWE. Because it really does, like, at the crux of it, Ricochet is allowed to feel the way that he is. Ricochet is allowed to speak his experience. And we can go through and just look at Ricochet's career and talk about the highs that he had on the indies and the great stuff that he did in PWG or Lucha Underground or, you know, New Japan, here, there, anywhere. And we can talk about how good he has been in AEW since his heel turn and how that middle chunk of his career in WWE was unfortunately not what it should have been if you had competent people putting the show together. But I think the deeper issue of it here, I think, is like the real core of what he's saying, that like people go there and they just get fucked by this system. They have the love of wrestling drained from them. They have their careers just kind of disregarded, you know, like
Gail Kim is an example, right? Going underneath the bottom of the Battle Royal because you're like, F this, I'm not doing this anymore.
You know? And I could just go on and on about different examples and things because, you know, he gave examples of his own, you know? But I just look at what Ricochet says and I go like, shout out to that guy, you know? Because it would be really, really easy to just either not say anything and be one of the folks that, you know, keeps the door open both sides and, you know, doesn't say anything about the former employer or whatever. But what he is saying carries so much weight, again, because of the reasons we've laid out, the success that he's experienced before and after, and the long line of people who have had their careers utterly fucked by this company and the decision makers at the head of it. Literally, like, you can name off, like, you can read them out like a phone book. Like, it is ridiculous.
I've been writing some.
I'll throw it back to you. I'll throw it back to you, bro.
You know what? Just so it cooks and marinates in your head. But before I do that, I just want to say something about the rebuttal, which being the WWE. Apparently, people in WWE are not happy with what Ricochet said. And then you get some people, you get some copium happening because you get some fans. Well, they don't really care, whatever. They're doing well. Who's Ricochet? How they trying to, minimize people's time and or accomplishments or who they are. This is what I take away from WWE. People are not happy. It's like the Wizard of Oz, and the veil's been lifted, and they're like, "How dare you? We're fucking you over. How dare you? Can you telling people we're fucking you over?" Because there's people within it. Because it's kind of like being institutionalized when you're in the WWE. I don't know if it's a WrestleMania moment or growing up as a fan, wherever you just get caught in the system, trapped, and how people are being booked. It becomes the norm. You're like, well, if Sami Zayn's not winning the title Royal Rumble, what do I expect myself to win a Royal Rumble or any other place in the world? So you kind of get caught in the system and you're caught in the trap. And what Ricochet did, he caught to the bullshit of what's been going on, the way they've been booking people. So you may get guys like Apollo Crews. That's one of his best mates. Tozawa's one of his best mates. They were like one of his, some of his groomsmen for his wedding. So he's talking to his mates saying, hey, that is not one way to have your career, and that you should take hold of it, because what you're doing right now is called a career retirement. There's a reason we make jokes that Nakamura going to WWE was essentially his retirement. He did his body of work in Japan should stand for itself, because he's running America. It's kind of like, if I win the big one, that's a bonus. If I don't, I get to preserve my body and be able to walk the next morning or wherever it is, because this style of wrestling is almost like how Bryan Danielson said it's almost pantomime way of wrestling. Is not the wrestling you should like. If you wanted to impress a friend to get into wrestling, not to this WWE, because it sounds like we're ragging on them, but they have a specific style of wrestling that is almost unimaginative sometimes, because they all want people to wrestle as a varied style, same kind of style, all varied, but with peppered in with some of your movesets. There's a formula, peppered in with some of your own kind of flavor you want to add to the formula, but it still is a formula. But when you get like other companies like, AAA or CMLL and, you got, New Japan, and you've got AEW, they don't have formulas, right? Even though they do have those trained wrestlers, but the whole point of an excursion is you go and discover what style appeals to you. Not like, well, this is the house style that I taught you. So no, I've taught you the basics. You're free to fly the coop. Go find somewhere else. Go to one of our partners and see if that style appeals to you. Mexico's not vibing? Go to the UK. UK not vibing? Come back to us and we'll help you. WWE is not like that. So what I'm trying to get at is guys like Apollo Crews, who, if it was Yuha Nation again, his full move set's unlocked, the things he can do. Because another thing as well that a lot of people forget is, I don't know if in Japan they have agents or producers, if that is the thing. And I don't know how hands-on they are, because that's another thing about American wrestling in WWE. It's kind of like, I have to wrestle the way my producer tells me to wrestle. I have to do it, the story I'm telling. I can't do flippy moves because that's not in the script that's been given to me, what I'm doing in the ring. So there's kind of restraints that's been put on wrestlers in terms of what they do in the ring. So what Ricochet did was like, take the restraints off. It's doing a disservice to your career. You no matter how much you show out, they have in their mind the guys they want to push at the end of the day. If they put you in a good hand box, it's hard to get out unless the fans will it. That's what they're trying to do with Bryan Danielson. They're trying to put him in a good hand box. Yeah, you can win a few World Heavyweight title because that's now the less than title, whatever it is. But the WWE title, I don't know. I don't really think you have it. Yeah, you can win for a cup of coffee, but Randy's going to face Batista. You know what I'm saying? But the fans were like, nope, that's our guy. That's what we want. And obviously, this is another ruthless discussion for another time, because what they learned from Bryan Danielson was the wrong thing. It wasn't that he was inevitable. It was like, fans love adversity. We're going to screw him first. Yeah. But these are the names that I wrote down. There's so many names. I know in the comment section I mentioned names, but these are the names that came to my mind in terms of guys that were doing great in Japan or Germany or in the UK, and they go to the WWE, heck, WCW, they go to WWE, and their career's never the same. You got guys like Big Van Vader. You've got Taz. Taz was a killer, guys. Isn't it weird when I have to stop there, because Taz is one of the biggest example. You got a guy who was a killer. It doesn't matter if he's 5'8", because now a lot of wrestlers are even shorter than what his build height was. This guy's 5'8", but he had an aura of a 6'9" killer. and you believed it because he was like a skilled assassin. It doesn't matter his size, it's about his tools. His tools were just lethal. So you believe that man, his size, of his stature, if you take him for granted, that's what he can use against you to take you down. So you got like a guy like Taz, and he goes to WWE, and within a year or under a year, they ruin the illusion, the aura. That's why every time when you talk about Taz's run in WWE, you just show his debut because he never matched any of the quality of his debut. The way the fans were with him, the 100% aura, the feeling and emotion, the fact he beat one of their pet projects. That's a big thing. And he was never able to recapture that kind of luster and that allure. And then he became an announcer like a year later because he saw the writing on the wall. He goes, I'm not going to go anywhere. He stops working now, wearing jogging bottoms, wearing a cut-off shirt. He knew he wasn't going to be the guy that he could be because at the time, WCW is in disarray. So you can't jump to WCW because that's the company Raven just come from. You know what I'm saying? He's like, everything's in disarray. So he's got nowhere to go. And he's like, I'm stuck here. I'm just going to become an announcer. So that is another example, again, for another time. We've got the Can-Am connection. You've got Mike Awesome, Public Enemy, Mike Bennett, the Miracle Mike Bennett. The reason why I mentioned him because he's a recent example of like the 2020s of a guy screwed by the WWE system. Because before that, the Miracle had a little buzz about him. Within the kingdom, you saw there was something about Mike Bennett. You could say it was Maria or something about him. But no, the guy can go in the ring. He was good on the microphone. He oddly sounded like CM Punk at times when he's cutting promos. But he's running TNA. Because that's when I was really locked into him as a wrestler in terms of his career path and everything like that. When he was in TNA, him and Maria Canales, they had their own kind of like, when you carve, like you said, like Ricochet, you carve your own niche, you carve your own space, that you get weekly segments, and you some portion of the storyline revolves around you. And that was Mike Bennett, the Miracle Mike Bennett. He had that cocky charisma, and the way he carried himself, you could see that this could be a future world champion in TNA. And that run could parlay to something more. Who knows? Because the Maria connects with WWE. There's always like, what if? Sort of thing. He did well in ROH in terms of being a tag team, but in TNA, you got to see, wow, this guy could be the guy. Then he gets scooped up. And you could argue one of the first things that kind of neuters him, as much as it's progressive and feminist, that he took his wife's surname. You look who's running the company, and you'd be an idiot to come and look me in my face without laughing that this was done in the feminist, forward-thinking way when it's Vince fucking McMahon, and you know how he feels about men being romantic or soft towards women. He has his own idea of what he thinks a real man should be like. So a man taking the last woman's name, he was really dead on arrival there. They did the whole Mark Mero Sable thing where he was cucked for his entire storyline, his entire existence in WWE, 24/7 title runs. When he shaved his head, yeah, he was going through addiction, but I feel like he's running the company didn't help either, right? He had that debut with Maria. They were like this, like lovebirds. I don't know where they were hoping to go with the storyline. It didn't really go anywhere. They're feuding Sami Zayn for a bit. I remember that, but he never really popped off. He never really got off the jump, and then he became losing, goes to rehab, comes out of rehab, shaves his head, gets in fantastic shape. But even though you're in fantastic shape, you're remotivated to trying to, be something. He had this stigma attached to him, and he was humiliated. And you could argue there's a reason right now that Tony Khan won't really give him much to do, because perception is a thing, right? Because when you think of Mike Bennett, you think Mike Canales, you just remember who's the father of the baby. And funny enough, Ricochet was a part of that angle when, when Maria goes, he's the father, wherever it was. Nah, man. Remember Ricochet? Nah, man. I got nothing to do with this. Nah, man, bro, you're getting this all wrong. Treated like a geek in the scene as well, Ricochet. And then Mike Canales gets released during the whole pandemic, releases and stuff like that. But I feel like he never recaptured the momentum he had when he was in TNA. Because right now, when I look at him, I'm seeing a guy that's still trying, but you can't help but think this is the guy that was getting buried on a weekly basis. You got EC3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the damage done to EC3, because again, this is a guy that was part of the WWE system as Derek Bateman, gets released. And again, if you followed him in NXT during the game show days, there's a few of us that watched it. I've been following this Chris since FCW because I was an FCW viewer. I was a guy that used to record the FCW shows and put it on YouTube, and I used to rely on him so I can watch what's going on. Oh, Mason Ryan is the FCW heavyweight champion. You know what I'm saying? I was into that. I was watching all of that. And I knew the kind of charisma he had, the Bryan Danielson, him and Bryan Danielson had like a buddy cop situation, Derek Bateman. So I knew the charisma was there. He goes to I was equal to ECW. He goes to TNA, he's EC3, Ethan Carter the third, the kayfabe nephew of Dixie, and he smashes it. You could argue he does a prototype of what the Miz is, because it's weird. Miz is a prototype. It seems like if you're cocky on the microphone and you're a bit sniveling, you're a Miz type, right? That's a thing.
Sure.
Right? Because MJF got labeled the Miz type because he was a sniveling guy on the microphone and dressing in suits. There's a type, but EC3 was the one to cultivate that kind of persona and look, and it led to him being a world champion, led to him to beating Kurt Angle, led him to beating Sting. If I'm not incorrect, I swear he was like one of Sting's either last match or second to last match in TNA. That's how much they thought of him. He rebuilt himself, got himself in great shape. He made himself undeniable for WWE to knock on his door. He goes to NXT. He has a decent run. I mean, I can't say it was a bad run. The fact that he was in that ladder match for the inaugural North American champion will always like give his lineage something, like he was part of something that was big. So he wasn't embarrassed outright. He was part of, he was in the mix. Then he gets called up in that bungled call up with guys like Ricochet and Aleister Black and DIY gets called up, and then there was no foresight put into it because he gets called up. He had a cool vignette, like, oh, he's coming, EC3's coming soon. And then you can argue. No, you can't even argue. That whole segment with Alexa Bliss and John Moxley saying EC1, where's EC1 and EC2, buried him. Because for some weird reason, a guy who's like raison d'etre, the thing that'll get him over, his mic skills, Vince was like, nah, let's make him a mute. I'm sorry, why are you still running a company, you senile old bastard? But everybody knows the story. You know that he ends up getting released, 24/7 run, depressed, EC3 at the wedding for Drake Maverick. You can see the guy was losing all hope, shaves his head, has a Fight Club-esque, company, because the way he was treated in that company, he had to stay away from that stink. He knew that look, that run was no longer, oh, this is stuff I did in TNA. It was like, this is the guy that failed in WWE due to no fault of his own, but he checked out. You can tell he checked out. So he had to revamp himself. That is one guy I'm mentioning. But the rest, I'm not going to do soliloquies and stuff like that. I'm going to mention names and throw it back to you. There's Gail Kim's second run. Oh my gosh. Superstar, because I watch Superstar in UK. It's just a superstar staple. You know her stuff. Ultimo Dragon, right? The trip at WrestleMania is what I most remember him for now. He's been reduced to that. A guy that was a legend. He was brought in to be like an equal, a Japanese equal, mass equal to Rey Mysterio. But look what happened there. You've got Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal. You've got Apollo Crews, we mentioned, Paul London, Akira Tozawa, who was a killer before he went to WWE. And you got Mickey James' second run, right? And I mentioned those people. There's more newer people we can get into, but these are like what Ricochet is saying is across the board. It's been happening for years. And I use Flash Funk as an example, and I use Vader as an example, and there's more you can go back. Barry Windham's cups of coffee in the WWF. Did that do great for his legacy? No. So I'm going to throw it back to you, but what Ricochet is saying has been happening for the longest time.
It has. And we could go through just
awesome Congress karma, for fuck's sake.
It's tough. You could go through every specific case, a lot of them extenuating circumstances regarding some of their runs and everything, but it does speak volumes to kind of what Ricochet is saying here. I kind of go back to the point that I was making where it was just a fucking game for the people at the top. Like, you just fuck with these people. You'd give them stupid names and you would give them stupid fucking gimmicks. And like, it was just because it was fucking fun for the old guard, at least, So like you say, you shouldn't be fucking booking a company at that point. But little did we know it would take a lot to get someone out of a position like that.
Right. She'll be there today.
Yeah. Honest to God. And it is very, very tough to reason with because Ricochet has managed to go out there and better himself. He has, I think, completely washed away the WWE stink of that run that he had, those, 4 years, 5 years on the main roster. And so many, through whatever circumstances, don't really get an opportunity to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much as well not getting an opportunity for some, but a lot of the talent that you just kind of mentioned, if they're at the end of their careers, if whatever the circumstances are, you know, they might not have the next opportunity after WWE, right? And it just boggles my mind how poorly the system has been set up over the years across multiple different, guards, old
Mm-hmm.
guard, new guard, whatever, to get the most out of these folks. You know, you talk about how uh at the time, Ricochet wasn't considered much of a promo, at the very least not a promo guy in WWE's way of establishing someone as such. Here, have this 3-page script to memorize before you go out, or whatever words they were having him say just weren't doing him any fucking favors. I don't even know what the point I was trying to make with that is. It just boggles my mind.
No, you're
You know,
basically trying to say that they didn't appeal to his strength, and even when it came to cutting promos, one of the biggest drawbacks of WWE promos when it's heavily scripted before
Yeah.
they scale back on things to bullet points or whatever it is in this new regime.
Yeah.
They'll give people Chat GPT was a thing back in the days, but that would be the kind of joke they make today. Like, what in the Chat GPT are you saying? The kind of promo that wasn't even in your voice. You're like, I would never say this, right?
Wouldn't do it, and it does bother me a lot when I see either people talking about this or seeing, WWE getting frustrated at this, as if, like poor people in WWE that he's making you look bad.
Mm-hmm.
That after you just made him look bad for 5 fucking years straight on your fucking show. Like, give me a break, bro. It's not as if he just never grabbed the fucking brass ring bullshit, right? Like, you, time and time again, I go back to the Brock Lesnar and then Riddick Moss double fucking feature, one after the other. You're not putting people in positions to succeed doing that.
No.
You're 100% right on the whole they learned the wrong lessons from Daniel Bryan thing. Like the idea that you just beat the underdog babyface over and over and over again and that'll make people want to see them win more. It's like, no, you buy the fucking ticket because your favorite wrestler wins all the time and you want to go to the show to see him fucking win.
Mm-hmm.
And they never got that fucking philosophy. They don't understand that, right? But you talk about the matches and the formulas and being able to do more, outside of WWE, and not even necessarily more, but just being able to tell stories, to have matches that are unique to the stories that you're telling and all of that. I throw it back to one of the matches that really solidified where I was like, fuck, this run is real good. Was about this time last year, actually, when Ricochet wrestled Swerve on TV, right? It was like the main event of Dynamite, I want to say, before their Revolution match. And Ricochet beats him, right? And this was maybe a month, maybe a little more than a month, maybe, into Ricochet's full-blown heel turn following World's End and the toilet paper and the scissors and all of that. And I watched that match and I was so blown away by its quality, but by its story, right? This was a match where Ricochet, this new heel persona that he wants to be, the bully that vanquishes the people that he perceives are bullying him, and he wants to be this dangerous guy and play Swerve's game, but he's not actually very good at that. He's not this killer. When he is at his best is when he's doing the high flying things, But him in his mind, not wanting to pander to the people, doesn't want to do those things. So he himself in the ring is battling with what style of wrestling to do to battle with his own mentality, but what is actually going to win him the match. And ultimately resorts to some form of cheating. He probably used the scissors or whatnot to get the win. And I just saw that match, and it was the first real time that I could remember just like I saw a Ricochet match and was blown away by the artist and the storyteller that is this guy, because his best work throughout his career has always been what he's been able to do in the ring, right? Dave Meltzer, I forget who he was quoting at the time, like 2018, 19 or so, said that Ricochet is the best high flyer in the wrestling business. Like Will Ospreay was a better wrestler who flies, but in terms of doing things that no one else can do, Ricochet was just on another level. And you can see all the work that he did in Dragon Gate and here, there, and everywhere. And how you can take a guy like that and say, no, like one flip a match. Motherfucker, don't need to make everyone wrestle the same. When you get a guy like this who can do things that no one else can, and you have him wrestle like everyone else can, you are fundamentally misunderstanding what makes wrestlers popular in the eyes of fans. And maybe it's just because you spent so much time developing a generation of wrestling fans, or WWE fans, I should say, that think that the most important bits of your presentation are your gimmick and your entrance theme and your gear and all of this shit, that you don't understand that what makes people unique are the stories that they can tell and the things that they can do in the ring. Like, no one else on the WWE roster or any roster is Ricochet. And this, this is a real sidebar, but this is what really fucking pisses me off when you get like your Bruce Pritchards and whatever going like, oh, well, we don't need a Wes Lee. We've got a Javon Evans or some such bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Just because you've got a black guy that might be able to do a flip does not mean they're the same fucking person. Wes Lee has an incredible story to tell, from the injuries he suffered and his tag team falling apart, all of that. That was shit that made him unique. The same way that Javon Evans and his inexperience and youth and all of those things are the story that he is able to tell. But because you look at wrestling on the most surface level fucking shit, those two guys are the same to you, or can fit your quota and be like, oh, well, we don't need both of them. Fuck you. That's the sort of shit where I look at Ricochet going out there on Raw and fucking doesn't matter if you were Ricochet or if you were Samoa Joe. Oh, there's a fucking suicide dive and Raw rolls on. It's the same shit. The same shit up and down, that they do not understand how to get the most out of their wrestlers. You might be able to pick someone and have them go on a winning streak and they get popular and they go, see, we know what we're doing. We got them over. As if just having some fucking people win matches is the bare fucking minimum of giving them a chance to succeed. Like, it drives me nuts. Like, I can literally take this in so many fucking different directions where, you know, when you have, like, I hate to bring him up, but like Jim Cornette tells a story of when the Midnights were talking about maybe going to WWE for a run in like the late 80s when WCW was a bit shit, right? Things when business was not great, and they have a meeting with Vince or whoever was having the meetings at the time, and they're going in there expecting to, like, you know, have the wrestling conversation. They'll be like, well, are we going to get a run with the belts? Like, who do you see us working with for the next 6 to 18 months? Like, what are the major programs? Is it going to be us and, you know, the Hart Foundation or the Bulldogs or, Demolition, whoever, right? Like, what are the plans? And they go in there and they're like, we're gonna have dolls. We're gonna have dolls of all of you. And they're like, okay, but why the fuck would we want dolls? We're heels. Like, what we should what are your plans for angles? How are we gonna get heat? How are you gonna introduce us? And they don't see that shit as fucking important. They didn't then. It's all about the fucking marketing. And yeah, I went to fucking school. I went to marketing classes. I know that shit's important too. But the best fucking marketing, here's a fucking sports lesson for you fuckers. The best sports marketing you can have is if your team is good. If your team fucking wins games, they're going to be more popular. Doesn't matter who's on the fucking team. Doesn't matter what the fucking logo looks like. It doesn't matter what the fucking t-shirts that season look like. If you win, you succeed. If you're a fucking wrestler, and one way or another, if you are booked to consistently win matches, you are going to be more over than you would be otherwise. So when you've got fuckers like those who are frustrated in WWE, frustrated that the guy that they routinely fucked over for 5 straight fucking years is going out there and saying, hey, I didn't appreciate being made to look like a fucking loser for 5 fucking years, making everyone else get over and being the fodder to every other single push of the month.
Logan Paul.
Side with that guy. I side with that guy because you clearly don't fucking get it. Losing to Riddick Moss in a singles fucking match for the 24/7 title. Ricochet, one of the most influential and groundbreaking stars of this century. Fucking ludicrous, bro.
And he's still active as well. And who's still active as well.
He is. I don't get it. I don't get any of it. I will throw it back to you in a moment, but I want to take this opportunity to once again state, as I always do when it comes to Ricochet, that I've never been more happy to be wrong. I was not a big fan of that first 4-month run he had in AEW and was very critical of it. And I want to slip it in because I'm happy to be wrong. I will eat crow for it. One of his tweets at some point was like, well, if you badmouth me, then go fuck yourself now. And I'm like, fine, I'll take that. Ricochet, if Ricochet saw that, I apologize to you, sir, because you're killing it. But yeah, man, they don't get it. They don't understand a lot of the fundamentals of this thing. And it really does, you can look at it from just the wrestling point of view and how frustrating that is as just a fan to fucking watch, a less than stellar television program or to see your favorite wrestlers lose and all of that. But it really does boil down to me that these are fucking human beings that through no fault of their own are in an industry in which there are not a lot of places to go and succeed. Ultimately, there's a handful. If you want to really succeed, you're going to 3 or 4 places, right? And a lot of them work together. So you got to navigate that minefield. And with that said, if you are signing these people and not giving them the best chance that they could have for their careers, for their livelihoods, that really does piss me off because they don't get to just have another career. You can make a joke out of Braden Walker's career, but that's Chris Harris. You move on the next week to your next joke that you're going to assign the Dolph Ziggler name to the next guy. But Chris Harris had to walk around with that. Braden walk around with that for the rest of his career. And that shit keeps going because they still have fucking shit ideas to this day like that. It really does rub me the wrong way.
And I think that you nailed it because when you mentioned the fact that someone like Bruce Pritchard or whoever reported that we don't need a Wesley because we have a Javon Evans, and you and I have discussed it in the past where there is levels to being a high flyer. You could argue that, for example, Darby Allin style, you could say he does some high flying, even though he's seen as more of a reckless Mick Foley type. But you would never say he wrestles like Mick Foley. There's an element of danger. Excuse me, a few seconds, I must cough now. There's an element of danger in what he does, but there's still some high flying. But his style of high flying is more like, I'm just gonna throw my body into you and it doesn't matter if I get hurt in the process. Almost like Sabu in that kind of way. And there's different
Jeff
levels to how Sabu, there's different levels between what Sabu does, what Jeff Hardy does, what Rob Van Dam does, and there's Kofi Kingston, and there's Two Cold Scorpio. And I'm introducing names because Javon Evans and Wesley's style of wrestling, you can just put the headline high flyer, but underneath it is layers to what the high flying is when you break it down to what they do. For me, Javon Evans is in a similar bracket to Kevin Knight, where is their height of things is what is their style of high flying. Because I want to use Jeff Hardy again as an example. Jeff Hardy is considered one of the greatest high flyers, but funnily enough, Jeff Hardy admittedly can't do moonsaults. That's why he never did it. And he tried it. He's like, I'm not really good at it. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's things he could do. The Tope Con Heroes, Senton, Swanton Bomb. That was his bread and butter. And he did some head scissors or whatever it is. But he had an unorthodox moveset. You can call him a high flyer because those were the moments you remembered. But there's more nuances to his moveset than what you think you saw in the ring. So again, Wesley and Javon Evans. Javon, he's the kind of guy I know the height he jumps off and he does his suicide dives over the top rope, and how he does the tornillos in the ring and stuff like that. And Wesley does it. Wesley's more of like a traditional 2010 style high flyer, where they from Amazing Red's point of view style of high flying, that's what you get Wesley. So for me, it's like, and also Wesley's build is different as well. Yeah, they're black on again, ticking black. And you look at both of them, you're like, Javon Evans is 6'1", 6'2", lanky high flyer, while Wesley's like 5'7", 5'8". They can consider it undersized and what type of the day, but he's got more of an underdog style. Even though you can do Javon Evans underdog because his physique's not there yet, but because he's 6'1", 6'2", that's what he stands out. The lankiness, he uses his lankiness to his advantage. You got two different wrestlers, but on paper, high flyer. What? And then you got like Evan Bourne. I feel like maybe 1, 2, 3 kids started it all, because I'm trying to think back to when did that archetype of small high flyer start, and then everyone gets slotted into that, because it's kind of thing. Because that's the issue with WWE. They don't look at individual wrestlers, your nationality, your story, your accolades, because they take that away from you. It's like, this is great. We noticed you because of your accolade, but guess what? You can't use your accolade anymore. You got a new name. You're Jimbo McDing-Dong. Now, Jimbo McDing-Dong, you don't have a background, you don't have a career, you're just Jimbo McDing-Dong, and your catchphrase is, hello, ding-dong. Now, repeat after me, hello, ding-dong. Now, don't do most of your high-flying stuff, because, that's so uncouth. We don't do that. Like you said, one drop kick per match. Just handcuff the guy in the ring. Take away what makes them special. But again, as I digress, again, 1, 2, 3 kid was that guy, right? The good hand, he can fly in the ring, the litness test for if you can go and you work or not. Then 1, 2, 3 kids gone. For ages, they didn't really have a litmus test. Who do we test it out? Savio Vega, you can argue, was probably the litmus test of, can Steve Austin hang in the ring before we move him up against Bret Hart, because Bret Hart wants to face him. They do this thing, you got good hands. You get Savio Vega. Then you go to 1987. Who's the good hand of 1987? I can't even remember, because at that point, it's not about in-ring anymore, because you get 5 minutes in the ring, so you don't need a good hand anymore. It's all about having good angles. But when they came back to wrestling, when the Radicals started, they needed like good hands again. Sean Waltman was back. So Sean Waltman, you're back in your old spot. X-Pac is back in his old spot. Then you had Tajiri, who was a good hand for a bit. You want to test yourself? Face Tajiri. And then you had Billy Kidman, so you're an embarrassment of riches. Man, you can face Kidman, or you can face Tajiri. Those are your good hands. And then you had Brian Kendrick came along. That's your new good hand. And then, of course, the one that suffered the most of that kind of style of being a high flyer good hand for me was Paul London. Because Paul London was in that position, it felt like, for ages. Yeah, he had a cruiserweight title run, but he was that good hand. And after when Paul London, you move on from him, because he has that tag title run with Brian Kendrick, and they break up again, but you can see the spot is falling further down than when he was before he was in that tag team. You've got Evan Bourne. You're like, oh, this is great. Evan Bourne's here. And I feel like Evan Bourne is what became the next wave of high flyers. When they saw Ricochet, they didn't see, this is the guy that's an international athlete. This is a guy that's world-renowned, viral moments. They're like, we've got a new Evan Bourne. This is the guy we're going to put in there with Logan Paul, make Logan Paul look great. Instead of, this is the guy we can sell toys, the Mighty Mouse, or whatever that bullshit they like to talk about. This is the guy that connects with kids. They didn't learn from Jeff Hardy. Because Jeff Hardy, luckily, he never fell into the good hand thing because Jeff Hardy's moveset was too unorthodox for him to be a good hand. He was a guy who was a spectacle guy. Because he was a spectacle guy, he couldn't be a good hand because Jeff Hardy's not a good hand. He's you put it, the ladders, the tables, you want to make moments, jump off stuff. That's your spectacle guy. So that's why Jeff Hardy can escape from that. And that's how you can also put Darby Allin in that zone. Spectacles, that's what they do. Crashing through glass. Some high flyers are not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? There's levels to it, but in WWE, it's not levels. It's a role. We need Hoss. We need a good hand. We need a technical wrestler. We need a chicken shit heel. That's why, for example, Chelsea Green is the talk of the moment. That she could have been a Ruthless Discussion if Ricochet didn't get to the front of the queue. Chelsea Green, there's more to her, there's layers to her, but she was smart in realizing, listen, there's this role that hasn't been inhabited, which is being basically, the comedy heel or the chicken shit heel who's not afraid to get up the butt kicked. Because you get someone like Jillian Hall who doing her singing gimmick, that was her. But she probably wasn't aware that's the role that should be placed in. And I don't know if she fully embraced it. But Chelsea Green was, for the first time, she was like, this is the role I'm in. I embrace it. Why? Because Miz, as much as we like to, rag on Miz on many different topics, there's one thing Miz gets right. He maximized his minutes of screen time because as much as he's got all these accolades, he's still a guy that's fine with losing in a 4 or 5 minute match, despite being a former world champion. And Chelsea goes, a guy like that that's willing to do anything will always get TV time. And I want to be like that because she's a shrewd woman. But at the same time, as much as she's placed herself in a role, she's multifaceted. So to hear someone that's got influence, because Michael Hayes got influence, because that guy should have got fired a long time ago for a racist transgression or getting drunk with certain women's wrestlers and, being inappropriate and whatever, taking advantage of them in his senior position. But he's still around. He's still one of Triple H's closest confidant. He's still one of Vince McMahon's closest confidant, and he's still around there to stink up the joint and take things back 30 years, even though we're trying to progress as a company. And he comes out and say, well, she will never be a main eventer. She's there to put over the future main eventers. Wrong. She's a main eventer, like, to be. She is a main eventer waiting to come out. She's got a connection with the crowd. She's over like Rover, give her the money in the bank, and she can do it. But he makes a boneheaded comment because that is how narrow-minded those old school guys are. Because they don't see Chelsea Green as her story, the everything she had to battle, being fired, injuries, doing Tough Enough, being an extra, going to TNA, making herself undeniable as a great character wrestler, because you rarely see women wrestlers be character wrestlers. So that made her unique. She can be whatever you want it to be, and she'll go for it. She don't mind being thrown off Money in the Bank, ladders into a quadruple table because she's got a background in that kind of realm in terms of stunts. And he sees her as comedy woman losing a few minutes. And it's great that people are fighting against it because that's what we need to do. Because as much as, like you say, we're going around what Ricochet said, we're bringing out a litany of wrestlers that suffered at the hands of WWE's booking malpractice. But what can we do to make things different? Because they will not do anything different unless we force them to. And we're seeing it with Chelsea Green because she's an example, because her career can go down the toilet if that mindset gets to live. But at the same time, before we move back, because that is like me digressing, what Michael has said probably is a blessing in disguise to her career, because who knows where it would have went. Now that he said that, and fans are now fighting to protect Chelsea and get where she needs to be, that may end up being a chef's kiss. But like everything in WWE, they're going to take the wrong lessons from when they do eventually learn to push Chelsea Green the way she should. We should badmouth people more often. Who knows?
Honestly. I am at the point where I'll be honest, I don't watch Unreal.
I watched it. As much as
I don't watch the WWE product, right? I don't watch it, right? So I'm not gonna watch the one where they're just, I have to sift through some worked shoot interviews and stuff. That's why, like, when I hear this shit, that Michael Hayes has said this and that, I immediately go like, this is a ploy. This is their fucking 2020s version of kayfabe, that this clip is going to get out and it's going to be the rallying cry for the Chelsea Green fans to turn her into a main event, right? Maybe that's me thinking layers deep. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I have very much come to just view Unreal as their new kayfabe, and that
Yeah.
it's all a work, and that is done on purpose. And if it works, it fucking works. Then maybe they're learning how to manipulate kayfabe in a new way. Sure, but I do want to harp on what your point was there, that the wrong lessons being learned from things like that, because Chelsea Green is 100% right in the idea that, she has carved out a little niche for herself on the roster, and there's only one Chelsea Green on the roster. So she's more likely to get TV time over the I don't want to say interchangeable women, but the women that are filling a similar role to one another in the eyes of WWE. Those can kind of get swapped in and out a little bit easier than your Chelsea Greens of the world. And I mean, we'll get further and further away from the point of all of these things, but like that's kind of the way that things used to work a little bit, like decades ago, where like Jake Roberts will say, it wasn't my job to go and challenge for the WWE title. Razor Ramon would say in interviews, like, my job was not to be, WWE champion. It was to be the guy that you went through on your way to the WWE championship. If you wrestled me and it was good, then you went up. And if you wrestled me and it wasn't good, you went down. And those kind of roles, your Tito Santanas of the world and your Jake the Snakes and your Razor Ramones and everything, those roles kind of went away when all of a sudden anyone could be WWE champion, and the business changed to the point where, if you weren't WWE champion, then your fans would revolt, and all of that sort of thing. So I think what Chelsea Green has done is, very wise. She obviously fits the role that she has, carved out for herself very well. But aside from that, it'll be very interesting if it isn't kayfabe, if that's just how Michael Hayes feels. Then I don't know how someone who's been in the business for fucking 60 years or whatever it's been can look at everything that I just said of very clearly carving out that role and just looking at that at nothing more than surface value, that is not a choice of Chelsea Green's to go out there and she can be the one that gets beat in 30 seconds or a minute or whatever and still make the most of her minutes. That doesn't mean that she can't also do the other thing. Supply demand, maybe at some point Chelsea Green can do that in a main event position if given the opportunity and the spot and whatnot.
The funny thing is, again, it is like a sidebar, but it does connect. It's all about putting people in roles and not let them expand, because that's what happened to Ricochet, and that's what Michael Hayes tried to do to Chelsea Green. The reason I choose to believe it for the simple fact, because you don't watch the show, so here's an interesting thing that probably got lost in the crack you didn't hear. He said probably in the same episode, in one of the episodes, he's one of the talking heads. He's doing a Naomi episode of Unreal. He mentioned that they shouldn't have walked out. They should have done business and all that kind of stuff, blah, blah. And then someone brought up something, Michael Hayes walking out of a show. So this hypocrite trying to make some, you should put, your grievances to the side and go work the show for the ladies that are involved in the match, blah, blah. That's what he's trying to make it seem like. Professionalism. It's not about you. It's all about how you fuck other people over that was meant to be involved in that match. You leave and made him scramble, all that kind of BS. And someone brought up something like he did something. I don't remember if it's a company or a show. In the 80s, Michael Hayes did the same thing. He wasn't happy with something and he walked out. So for me, to say that is he kayfabing? Nah, he's an idiot. It can't be he's an idiot on that section, and then with Chelsea he's been Machiavellian. He thinking he's the hot shit. He think, I'm giving bouts of wisdom. A person like that, nah, see, you're confusing her for like what Aaliyah was when she was in the company. You're confusing her for what, I don't know, Zelina Vega could be, because they tried pushing Zelina, but Zelina, I don't know. Again, I've spoken about this, where producers don't get enough flack because sometimes I don't know, is it their ability is why they can't, get up to pace in terms of quality matches, or is it that their producers are just booking them in matches which goes against their strength? And because you could be a kind of person where I need 20 minutes in order to tell my story, and then they're like, we need you to reduce that 20 minutes to probably like 7-8 minutes if we're being kind, or 10 minutes max, or whatever it is. And you're not able to tell a good story, or to show what you can do in the ring, so it is a dud. So sometimes it's like, is it the talent or is it the producer? It could be a marriage of both. I always joke about John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, and John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. So you know what I'm saying? It's like, why was that match shit, but that match is not? There's more into the ingredients of what makes the soup. And I'm like, is it the salt and pepper? Is it there was too much salt, too much pepper, or not enough salt, not enough pepper? You know what I'm saying? Bring it back to you. I need to cough again.
Well, this is it. We've kind of like taken this conversation all around the world and back again.
Woo! Yeah.
Woo. And I do kind of want to like bring it back to Ricochet,
of course,
ultimately, as the one that kind of kicked all of this off, and I was just looking over like all the things that he was saying. Like, I was reading some of the tweets again, as you were saying that, and the ones that stand out most to me are, of course, WWE kills legacies, kills love of the sport.
Yeah.
And they took my love of pro wrestling away.
Mm-hmm.
And man, how many more times do we need to hear that? How many more times across, regimes or whatever, do we need to hear that, oh, shit hasn't changed, that WWE just, if people have enough of their lifelong dream, this has been going on for decades, as long as I've been a fan, it's that they just get tired of this dream that they had at one point. And that to me is so heartbreaking. Sure, there are going to be people, like, not everyone's going to make it to the top. Not everyone's going to succeed or whatever, to that level. Not everyone can main event WrestleMania and do this and that, right? But I think if a lot more people were given the tools to actually succeed in this place, I think just everyone would benefit from it, whether it be your Ricochets, whether it be someone like Cody the first time. Like, could everything that he just said, that Ricochet said, not have possibly, if he was maybe a little less diplomatic about things, could all of that not come from Cody Rhodes fresh off of Stardust? And that's 10 years ago. And it could read almost exactly the same. That could be quotes from Jon Moxley's Talk is Jericho podcast. That could be CM Punk's podcast. Tony Storm. Everybody just deciding they've had enough of their dream. It boggles my mind. It breaks my heart. And it really pisses me off, because, like, I'm super glad that Ricochet has been able to go to AEW and succeed to the level that he has, but not everyone gets that chance,
Ciampa's lucky. Ciampa's a recent example of just we're a couple of weeks in his run, and we can already say it's better than the 5 years he probably had on the main roster. Just those 2 weeks.
That's it. Like, I didn't want this, this discussion, this ruthless discussion, to be just like singling out anyone who had a shit run in WWE and going through it beat by beat, by any means, because we could be here all day.
I mean, we could be,
but fuck's sake, man, like, for every every Bronson Reed that gets put with the Miz and then eventually gets put somewhere else and is allowed to succeed, you get a Tommaso Ciampa who's put with the Miz and then just fucking suffers, and maybe doesn't get to overcome that kind of stink of a bad introduction or stupid ideas or not having the thought put into it because, it doesn't matter. We could just change things whenever. We could. I don't want to repeat myself by any means, because a lot of it is the same sort of thing just being said in a bunch of different ways, but ultimately Tommaso Ciampa is he's a great example of all of this too. Going somewhere else, immediately being shown to be better for it. Granted, that's not always going to be the case. There's going to be times when people will want to leave the place that they've just been, and the other company is not booking so hot to be able to put them in a position to immediately thrive and succeed either, wherever that company might be. But it just does baffle me how after so long we have not been able to figure out a way of making the most of the talents of some of the most talented performers in the world to drive them to the point where they are feeling like so ferociously against their former employer, because we might find out, like, Ricochet might do a podcast at some point and talk about like specific incidences that he's had with people, with management. I don't know if that's coming. I have not heard anything of this subject. I'm just saying right now, all it comes down to from his tweets are just the elongated treatment that he had booking wise, presentation wise over the course of his tenure there. And if you're that fucking bad at doing that to get someone to feel the way that he is doing it, maybe don't get pissed off at him. Maybe look in the fucking mirror. I don't know.
I mean, because it's easy to forget towards the end of his run, he had a tag team with Braun Strowman. And I do think if Braun Strowman didn't get injured, they would have went further with that kind of tag team. And I could have seen the tag title in their run in the future and then a Braun Strowman heel turn, because you know where that kind of storyline always goes. The big little tag team is like RVD and Kane and X-Pac and Kane. You always know that the monster going to snap and turn on the wrestler, and then he would have gone back into the void after that tag run. He knows is the rinse and repeat of it all. Again, you said we can go around the houses because what we've done is almost like a court case. We've done all the exhibits and we've built a case explaining what happens when you bring an illustrious indie name into WWE. How at the end of their run, not all of them could be a CM Punk or Bryan Danielson. Some of them, unfortunately, can have a shit run. I mean, so you can argue Samoa Joe was middle of the road, but the booking malpractices started in TNA, so you can just say the WWE just it's quite hard, because I consider he didn't have that much of embarrassment with having like the cock tattoo in his face and never being champion again. You know what I'm saying? There's layers to it. Like, I remember him beating Mysterio in a few minutes of WrestleMania because Mysterio was injured, but still that dominant win did a lot. And, confronting Brock did a lot. But then again, he was an announcer, and I still remember the good moments of him rising to the occasion for I forgot the guy's name. He's now in TNA, the announcer, because they always change. Tom
It's Tom Hannafin now. It was
Yes.
Tom Phillips.
That's it. Him standing up for his, colleague against Seth Rollins and his cohorts. That was for me a great moment. So I do remember more good moments than the lackluster moments, which was he's not pushed to the level he should be. But I'm using him as an example because, it's Samoa Joe. He did have a cup of coffee in WWE, but he was reduced to being, an announcer, even though he was a good announcer, and I didn't mind it. I was like, because there's always been a connotation between Taz and Samoa Joe for me, because I always feel like Samoa Joe was like an improvement of what Taz was in the 90s, but in the 2000s. Like, this is an upgrade model. This is your new Windows update, or this is a new Mac update, or whatever it is on the software. And so for him to be an announcer, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. He's in the twilight of his career, but the AEW, they bring something out of him. But what I'm trying to get is, you get a lot of guys, the indie darling, indie names, they come to WWE, and when they finish with WWE, hardly anyone wants to touch them. I used to call going to Japan is like going to the void, you know, because Vader had apparently a great second run in Japan, because I've been watching all these video essays in my mind, like, poor Vader, he's running workout in America, back to purgatory because I don't know, WCW, probably some heat there, wherever it is, even though there's rumors that they wanted him back and they got sold, so who knows. But he was in Japan. So for me, it's like it wasn't like the Japan of today where everyone's tapped into Japan social media and stuff like this. Is back in the days where, like, if you don't have a magazine, you don't have a thorough line into what's going on in Japan, when the rest is gone, they're gone. So for me, it was purgatory. So his run went, absolutely kaput. And then you got Too Cold Scorpio. I got all these examples. It's just that when that question, does WWE ruin legacies? Because people might ask us, is that a yes or a no? It's quite hard because we mentioned Bryan Danielson. We mentioned Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen. Would you say, oh, Kevin Steen's body of work in the ring, is it better than Kevin Owens' body of work? Probably. But is it moments? Because WWE is a moments company. So that's the thing. It's like, were the moments bigger in WWE than it was prior? And then at the end of Kevin, Owens' current WWE run, his contract ran out. Would you say that he's less than or more than? And I'll say, because of he's been in big storyline moments, 5-star matches before he went off his neck surgery, you say he's in a good standing for if TK wants to throw the bag at him. And Sammy's kind of similar as well, despite him losing decisively to Drew McIntyre recently at Royal Rumble, but him and Kevin Owens got to main event, tag team title main event at night 1 of WrestleMania. Because I do agree with Punk, even though right message, wrong messenger, because he's a hypocrite. He did say buy one, get one free. I do believe that the night ends with that specific match main eventing. That for me is a main event. Don't do always because it's a 2-day thing. That's like saying 5 days in a week don't count. Only Monday counts. So don't be a dickhead. Don't be facetious. So I do think, those 2 days, whoever main events, night 1, night 2, those are main events. You could argue night 2 means the most because it's the last one. Again, that's up to you how you want to do semantics or do your wrestling math. But not a lot of people get those kind of opportunities runs. You get to be like Apollo Crews, Tozawa, you get the good handstanding, and then that's it. Would Tozawa get a bag from TK? Unless TK is a huge fan of his stuff, who knows? So it's kind of yes and no. WWE, if they love you, legacy defining. But if WWE see you one way, they're so pig-headed, they're so narrow-minded that you have to take everything in your power to change their mind. Because if you don't, they just see you in that one spot, and then that's the end of your career aspirations. Because if you want to do more, if you're happy with how they're booking you, sure, give me 10 years of being a paid career, undercard wrestler. But there are people that want to do more in their career. They want to be legacy defining, not a footnote or a page in history. So to answer that question, does it kill legacies? Yes and no, because there are valid arguments for both. And we're not going to be here for 10 years, because I just mentioned good sides of things. That's better than what we could have done.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right in that, like, you can go through any wrestler's career and you can talk about whether or not WWE had a positive or negative effect on, their perception, on their legacy, on whatever you want to call it. And you will absolutely find people who have benefited from going there. Your Kevin Owens of the world have absolutely gone to WWE and thrived. There are unfortunately many people who have gone to WWE, not thrived, and have been left to kind of pick up the pieces afterwards. And I'm like, not everybody is going to get the call from TK or anybody in particular if your run is bad enough. Maybe if you were a star in Ring of Honor in the late 2000s, you might get the call from TK no matter what, because he likes what he likes. But you're not guaranteed to be able to go to another place and rejuvenate yourself if that run is bad enough. And we have seen people whose runs have been bad enough. Fucking hell, like there are so many examples. Like, we literally could be here all night just talking about each individual person go through their career. And is it a blanket statement? No, probably not. Nothing is. Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Dijak is an example because I want to use one to people because people be like, "Well, say it, Tempest." I mean, Dijak is an example. He's the other guy that's in the match with Keith Lee, right? He's a 6'7" guy, can do high flying stuff. Was an ROH guy as well, guys. Let's not forget, was an ROH guy. Was an ROH guy, right? Where is he right now? Slumming in MLW, like he's Killer Cross. He can work. But why is there no room at the inn? Could it be that TK's like, well, we've got Lance Archer, even though you are younger? But you know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's an example. His run in WWE was so bad because the only thing I can go about his run is NXT stuff as Dominic Dijakovic and also a Dijak. Those are the two runs I can go to in terms of those are runs that you should hang your hat on in terms of success in WWE. But in terms of main roster, he's bloody T-bar. And you know, it sucks because he saw going back to NXT, okay, I get to revamp myself, come back to the main roster and make my legacy. Never got the opportunity, he got screwed out of his, you know, for his contract. And since then, it's been what, 2 years? 3 years? Has TK come calling? He's one example of a guy that you'd think, oh, TK signed this guy. He's a big guy, he can work, have great matches. He had, you know, great matches with Oba, great matches with Wesley. Amongst, you know, he became a good triple threat merchant. Put Dijak in there with other guys, you're more likely to get a good triple threat match. Why does it not happen? So that's an example. Just give one example for you.
I very much appreciate you balancing the scales around here. I think we've pretty much kind of covered everything we can cover without making this podcast 4 hours long. Sad, is there anything else that you want to kind of say, maybe in conclusion, either to sum up or what have you, about Ricochet and what he has said this week?
Well, this is what I'm hoping for, all right? Because there has to be some sort of positivity out of it. Because the kind of negative of doing a Ruthless Discussion, because again, Ruthless Discussion was born from these kind of statements and social media tweets, because I can't be able to do 5-page paragraphs with my opinions on things, because again, someone else's career in life. I agree with him because he experienced it, and also we've seen examples of what he went through. So he's not gaslighting us. His fans trying to gaslight him because with the accolades that really mean nothing. Oh, it's champion for 50 days, whatever it is. I just remember he's the guy that lost to Gunther for an internal title. Like, who did Gunther beat to win a title? Even though he won the whole tournament, faced Santos Escobar, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, whatever. What I do want to say is I'm hoping what Ricochet says, it forces WWE to try to cover their butt, because they do this half measures thing where, like, for the next few months, because our image has been kind of tarnished by a disgruntled ex-employee, we're going to show him by pushing people that he said the careers got fucked over. And he's smart to mention names. I don't know if Ricochet knew. He's like, if I mention names of people that I like or that were in my class, that career's not really gone the way it should, they haven't left when they should have, when their contract was coming up, I'm going to mention them. So that way they pushed them. Apollo Crews made an appearance. Who knows? So I'm hoping that what Ricochet says, it kind of like knocks some sense into people who are like Johnny Gargano, who's just going through the motion, who's allegedly probably might be going back to NXT because he was laying catatonic state on top of them, just those cases that says NXT on it. Who knows? Maybe it's another callback to DX because he's a DX mark, but he didn't work out for his last partner, even though I don't know if his partner was a DX mark. He was just going along for the fun because, yeah, whatever politics. Yeah, I'm bold like you. Ha, 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 ha. Push me, bitch. Look where he is right now. I'm hoping that WWE will now use this as an opportunity to push the guys that has been stagnant. Pete Dunne, Tyler Bates, Ludwig Kaisers of the world, who've now been reduced to gimmicks or whatever. They've got a talented roster, and again, they don't look at wrestling, look at roles. Haha, you're the comedy heel most. They don't look at guys. Chad Gable of the world, even though Chad Gable was an indie guy, yeah, he was kind of taught adjacent to the Chikara kind of training school, wherever it is. But there's so many guys, like you said, we can list. I'm hoping they can do something about it. Last point. These are their lives. Believe them. Don't be a fucking idiot of someone telling you this is my experience. Well, actually, you saw it yourself. You get some people say, who are you? Someone trying to dunk on him by using that Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams clip with NXT when they said, oh, he doesn't have to use the microphone. I'm like, you are actually giving him more examples of why he left WWE. Treated like a geek, and you're showing him a geek moment. Kind of like reading literacy is going out the window. So believe wrestlers because it's their experience. Those are the two things.
Hell yeah, brother. I want to echo your point, and then we'll get out of here. That if WWE goes out of their way to prove Ricochet wrong, that hey, we're gonna push all these guys, then great. Whatever gets the job done.
Yeah.
Whatever gets the job done. If that means that guys can get on TV, maybe get an opportunity, goddamn, name the whole roster, Ricochet. Maybe they'll all benefit for it. I don't care what form it comes in, particularly if it means that some of the guys and gals have better opportunities to make more money and achieve greater things in wrestling, because that ultimately is what I want for as many people as possible. That being said, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this Ruthless discussion here. We appreciate you all for checking us out on Catch Up. Make sure that you leave a comment down below. Let us know if you think we're stupid for our opinions, or Ricochet is stupid for his, or how stupid WWE is for ruining so many people's careers and loves of wrestling. Let us know in the comments. Have a lovely discussion, or lovely Ruthless discussion yourselves. We'll be back on Thursday with another review of AEW Dynamite. Things are picking up at the moment in AEW land, so hell yeah, brother. We've got big matches ahead of us, so I'm very much looking forward to it. We'll be back. That'll be for members only, of course, here on Wrestle Purist, so make sure that you are signed up as a member so that you know when we go live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Make sure you're there. Until then, I've been Tempest, that's been Sat, and we're out of time.